Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of David's Fascination with the Richard Nixon Presidency, or as the rest of you will be entitling your videos, Historical Scholarship Using Databases. I use the Oxford Database, and I found an article entitled Memoirs, an Intimate Recollection of 12 American Presidents from Theodore Roosevelt to Richard Nixon. Unfortunately, that article was locked. This is my fourth course here at Liberty University in the PhD program for history, and this is the first time that I found a database article that was not either actually in the library or had a link to another database. This was a locked one. I could not get to it. So I did a search again and I found another one. This one was called Governance and the Nixon Administrative Legacy. This is a reference to the president and his chief of staff. Anybody who's watched the West Wing series has seen the chief of staff as the one who holds the whole bureaucracy together. Bureaucracy is a term coined by German sociologist Max Weber to talk about the structures of organizations, whether it be schools, whether it be businesses. And we actually had a reference to this last week in the video about MOOCs, when we heard about how our university actually embraced MOOCs and the problems involved with those types of courses. So in this article, the authors Karen Holt and Charles E. Wolcott talked about how Nixon, then Ford, then the Carter administrations evolved or de-evolved their structures based upon pre-existing structures. So this is an actual article review of a book. So the book is an analysis of organizational structure of the White House, actually from Nixon all the way up to the George W. Bush presidency. I enjoyed the review for its dry, analytical style. It was lacking the fun anecdotes that come with White House leadership. Many of the presidents have actually caused chaos in their White Houses due to their personalities. And I've read a couple of books on this, so I'm familiar with some of the narratives, like Lyndon Baines Johnson bullied people. Nixon was very closeted and would actually send his staff members over to talk to other people who were visiting him because he didn't want to directly interact with them. So some of that stuff I already knew. And you can find more about that in books like The President's Club. This article lays out in an orderly fashion the systematic analysis, quote, Hunt and Wolcott take their view of institutions that are built on recurring interactions, whether or not within the bounds of an organizational chart. And they trace the style of leadership that evolved since Nixon was elected in '68. Quote, over time, however, Holt and Wolcott argue that structures should grow more congruent with prevailing decision settings. What are they talking about? Well, quote, over time, for example, more changes in public relations interaction groups outreach the congressional regulations since last established. So they're saying some structures that were put in before stay the same and new ones evolved, or old ones were removed and new ones were integrated. The article goes on to say that, quote, qualitative analysis of various staff functions. Outreach, for example, is an analysis across 4 chapters devoted to polling and communication, speech writing, interest groups, and congressional liaisons. So there's a variety of styles used in assembling this book and analyzing this book. It's not just a straight read book review. It actually analyzes the styles of the research data collected. I don't like to quote, an article also introduces us to Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld as White House, quote, staff coordinators during the jury forward time period of the 1974-75 period, which is interesting because they go on to become the vice president and the chief, the defense secretary during the George W. Bush presidency in 2001. To close, I don't really like to quote whole paragraphs, but this one does a better job than I would in paraphrasing the whole article. Holt and Wolcott give presidents an intriguing blueprint for developing such collegial mechanisms, studying Nixon himself. Indeed, the authors come away from their study with rather admiring the Nixon White House. Given the controversial wisdom the palace guard helped cause the Watergate, this is counterintuitive finding, but one that accords with over time the Nixon archives. What they're saying is, what we came away thinking about Nixon and Watergate, there's actually counter evidence here that redefines the way we look at Nixon. And this being a historical course, isn't it fun to look at what we thought we knew and find out new things about it? Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.